In this video 4.4, we are going to be graphing a function rule. So by the end of the video and work time in class, you should be able to graph functions. First of all, a continuous graph is a graph that is unbroken. So if I was looking at two variables like milk in gallons and the weight of, let's say, cheese in ounces, I would see that the more milk in gallons, the heavier, the more ounces. So that would be going up in a line like this if we're looking at weight of cheese. And this would be continuous in the sense that that line is a solid line where you can have in between whole gallons and whole ounces. You can have in between there. Whereas the opposite would be a discrete graph, and that's composed of distinct isolated points where if I was looking at, let's say we were looking at the amount of money earned when we are, let's say, looking at car sales, and we're just selling cars, not parts of cars, just whole cars. We're looking at the car sales and the amount of money that is made. And if I sell 0 cars, I get 0 money. And as I sell more cars, the amount of money being earned would be going up, especially if I worked on commission. And I wouldn't connect the points because I'm not selling parts of cars, I'm just selling cars at a car lot. That would be an example of a discrete graph where you just have isolated points. So if continuous, it makes that solid line, where discrete is just the points. What is the graph of the function rule y equals negative 1/2 times x plus 2? So we are going to make a table for our ordered pairs as we graph this function rule. Looks like the smartboard here is taking a minute. And we can put any value in for x that we want. It's always good to put in at least 4 values into x. Because I'm not dealing with a word problem here, I want to put positive and negative. A lot of times some of the word problems we'll be doing throughout the year, you'll notice negative numbers don't make sense in the problem, but in a problem like this, you definitely want to put negative numbers in. I usually start with 0. Let's put in numbers that work nicely for halves. So let's put in 2, let's put in negative 2, and let's put in negative 4 into the function. So if we put 0 into the function, negative 1/2 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 2 is 2. Put in 2, negative 1/2 times 2 gives you negative 1 plus 2, which is 1. Put in negative 2, you end up with 1 plus 2, which is 3. And put in negative 4, you're left with 2 plus 2, which is 4. So let's graph those 4 points, 0, 2, 2, 1, negative 2, 3, negative 4, 4. And since we're not dealing with a word problem, we don't have to worry about the discrete. This would be continuous because you can have parts of whole numbers. Put arrows on the ends of your line because it does go on forever in both directions. Couple things I want to point out to you, and we'll talk more and more about this. If you look at this number in front of your x, the coefficient of your x, negative 1/2, that is the slope of this line. This line is going downward from left to right. That has a negative 1/2 slope. Down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2. That's the slope, negative 1/2. The other point I wanted to point out to you is this plus 2 right here. If you look, right where that line crosses, the y-axis is at 2. And we're going to talk more and more about those relationships in linear functions. The function c equals 12.5h plus 30 is representing the total cost of renting a truck for h hours. What is a reasonable graph of the function given that the daily limit is 12 hours? So we're going to put in the hours, and then we're going to get out the cost. We're going to put in 0. How about 2, 6, and let's go to 12 since that limit is 12, so we'll go all the way to that limit. You can rent truck for part of hours, so that means this is going to be a continuous graph because parts of the whole work. So we're going to take 0, put it in for h. 12.5 times 0 plus 30 is 30. Put in 2 for the h. 12.5 times 2 plus the 30 would be 55. Put in 6. 6 times 12.5 plus 30 gives you 105. And then put in 12. 12.5 times 12 plus 30 gives you 180. So the maximum, the daily limit to rent this truck is 12 hours, so the maximum amount of money that you would be paying is $180. So our graph, the vertical has to go up to at least 180, so I'm going to change this interval that I have over here, and I'm going to go up, let's say, by 20s. So this would be 20, 40, and so on. So I have my graph going up to 200, which is perfect. And then we're going to plot our points. So for 0 hours, your cost is 30. That's your initial payment. For 2 hours, we know it's at 55, which is right about there. 6 hours, we figured it was 105. And for the 12 hours, which would be approximately, if this is 11 and this is 12, 12 and then up to 180 would be approximately right here. And so we would connect those points. It should make a line, and it would stop at that last point because that's the maximum. You wouldn't put an arrow there. Megan buys eggs at the supermarket for $1.75 per carton. The cost is a function of the number of cartons bought. What is the graph of the function, and is the function continuous or discrete? So we are buying cartons of eggs. So for 1 carton, it's $1.75. For 2 cartons, that would be $3.50. For 3 cartons, that would be $5.25. 4 cartons would be $7, and so on. I could keep going. And so I'm going to plot these points. 1 carton is $1.75. Oop, should be right about in there. 2 cartons is $3.50. 3 cartons, $5.25. 4 cartons, we got 7. You can see the points. If we connected them, it would make a line, but we're not going to connect them because we're not buying parts of a carton at a supermarket. You buy cartons, and so this would be discrete, where you just plot the points. What is the graph of y equals x squared minus 1? So I'm going to make a table of ordered pairs. And I want you to put in some positive and some negative values into the function. And let's put these 5 values in. 0 squared minus 1 gives us negative 1. 1 squared minus 1 is 0. Negative 1 squared, now that negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. So I put in 1, I get out 0, and I put in negative 1, I get out 0. Then I'm going to put in 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. And I'm also putting in negative 2 squared. Negative 2 times negative 2 is also 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. So you can see here that when I put in a value and then the opposite, I get the same thing. And so when we plot this, 0, negative 1, 1, 0, and negative 1, 0, And we get, let's see, 2, 3, and negative 2, 3. And we connect them because this is a function here where parts of wholes work. This is called a parabola, which is something we'll work more and more with throughout the year. Whenever you have an x squared, that is a non-linear function. And it looks just like that. It is a U-shaped curve. Can you say I can graph functions? Write a summary and reflection and be prepared for the work time in class.